Hello, everyone. Triptika Connie here. I'm so grateful and thankful to have you here for the Migraine Reboot Part 3. So since we have a nice 30-40 minutes ahead of us, I'm going to share my screen and start with this presentation. I'm looking forward to opening up, hopefully, your eyes to a brand new model that I've been using, oh gosh, for the last probably 2 decades, but really fine-tuned it over the last 5 years. And I really would love to share with you the details of how to get to the root cause of your pain. And before we get started, just making sure that you all are in a comfortable space and you can dedicate the next 30 minutes to this presentation. Let's just take a deep breath together. For the other sessions, having all of you live, on the 30-minute countdown with Zoom was a little tricky. I didn't realize that I wouldn't get like a 2-minute warning that the system was going to close. I love Zoom. I've used it. I've had many, many years of experience with Zoom using the paid account. And as I mentioned to some of you, I switched over to coaching calls via the phone. So I'm not on technology as much. So most of the work I do is either in person or over the phone. And I really prefer to not be on screens. And I think for all of you that have migraine, you may appreciate that. So I do want you to look at the slides. I think the slides are really helpful as I tell the story. Though if you would like to kind of occasionally look away from the screen, I'd recommend looking at a plant, looking out at nature, just resetting yourself, drinking lots of water, and, being comfortable. Get focused on the presentation. Ready? Let's get started. Part 3, let's begin. I will share the Facebook group with all of you. I'll be sending out an email with this replay link along with the Facebook information. And if you could just take a moment and understand the disclaimers and approve of the disclaimers before we start. And then I have one more set of disclaimers. Just take a moment to review them, please. Thank you for taking the time to review the disclaimers. And if you will stay with me on this presentation, I am assuming you have approved and you accept all of the disclaimers. Thank you. So an overview, today's presentation, I'll discuss a little bit about Ayurveda, ancient medicine, this ancient wisdom that found its way to me when I was a first-year medical student. It's fascinating. The more you learn about it, the more you'll want to learn, I promise you. We'll go into what I call the stress personality. It's based on that ancient wisdom of Ayurveda. Then jump into the three-brain model. And this is that new model that I've been using for the last, really fine-tuning for the last 5 years, though quite honestly, probably been using it since I started practicing, didn't even realize I was using this model. And those most successful clients of mine that did really well, patients and clients, were following this model. And I found out that this is the secret sauce to really improving pain and honestly improving any condition. And then I'll share with you the next steps on our journey. If you'd like to continue to work with me, I'll share at the end how we could do that. So let's start this concept of balance. How do we achieve balance? What's the best way to create a balanced self? And it's challenging. And I had mentioned that, earlier in my day when I was struggling on my own, I had, sought out for different approaches, advice from those that were wiser than me. And I had hired a coach who showed me a picture and he's like, you want to be optimal. You want to be optimal in your performance. And it was a similar kind of graphic to this like routine bell-shaped curve. We've seen this, and yet I looked at it a different way. If you look at the x-axis, you see stress, the y is performance. We all want to be at that sweet spot, where we're just optimal, right there in that tip of that peak of the bell curve. Yet very often life pulls us off to the right into stress and anxiety, sometimes overwhelm, or off to the left, where we get bored and hedonic. We call it lack of motivation. And we don't really have the attention to do what we need to do to improve ourselves. And we don't want to be on either extreme. Either extreme actually creates imbalance. We'd like to be right there. And stress is something that you don't want to not have stress. That isn't the goal, to avoid stress. The goal is to have just the right amount of stress. We want to make cortisol every day. We just don't want to make too much cortisol or too little. Remember the Goldilocks? You want to have that cup of porridge that's just right, the bed that's just perfectly the right temperature, not too cold, not too hot. And it's that same idea of cortisol, just making just enough so you're functioning at the level that your system can handle and not pushing beyond it or undertaxing it. Yes, you can undertax your system where you don't grow and you don't evolve and you don't do new things. You stay in your comfort zone. So I'm going to encourage you to try to find that sweet spot because it exists for every single one of us. How I found my sweet spot was really by studying Eastern medicine. And for me, Ayurveda really gave me the answer to stress, gave me the answer to how to find balance and health. Ayur means life, and Veda is wisdom. It's the wisdom of life, the wisdom of living, the wisdom of longevity. It's a 5,000-year-old science. Many believe it was believed to be the first system of healing known to mankind. And I believe that Vedic civilization in Southeast Asia went south to create Ayurveda, went north to create traditional Chinese medicine and homeopathy. And we're all saying the same thing. All these ancient sciences are kind of preaching the same thing, the same message, just packaging it in a little bit of a different way. I like Ayurveda's packaging, and I'll go through why I like it. So in Ayurveda, we have this idea of connection with ourselves. And when you connect with your authentic, balanced self, that's what gives you harmony of mind, body, and spirit. That's what allows your pain body to dissipate. When you're disconnected, that's when you feel stress. So it's all about connection. And in Ayurveda, we're all made up of 5 elements: air, space, fire, earth, and water. Every single one of us, every living being has 5 elements. Yet some of us are more air and space predominant in our nature, we're the vatas. Some of us are more fire and water, we're the pittas. Others are more earth and water, the kaphas. Vata, pitta, kapha. If you do the stress quiz, you're the windy, fiery, or earthy. Now, the stress quiz was really looking at your body out of alignment. That's called your vikruti state. What I'm going to encourage us to think about at this moment is your body in alignment, your prakriti, your balanced state. So are you naturally a Vata type? Vata types are ones that are creative, moving, going, doing, spiritual, musical. They tend to be ones that enjoy a lot of people, very conversational, the life of the party. Don't really regard the circadian rhythm, meaning like to get up at certain times, get to bed at certain times, skip meals. If that's your nature, love to travel, love excitement, you like new things, then you're a Vata. Pittas, a little bit more in terms of body frame, more muscular, more type A, directed, organized. Pittas love to get things done, love to oversee things, love to be in charge. If you love to get up and speak, you're a Pitta. And Pittas are ones that are just very driven by fire, the fire element versus the Vata, that's the wind element. Pittas are very logical in the way they think, very organized, very mathematical, very driven by science. Vata is a little bit more flowy, loosey-goosey. Don't be as driven by science. They're not as driven by science. The Pittas are a little bit more guided towards the scientific data and study. Show me the research behind that. And so Pittas are very intelligent, very driven, and Pittas have a strong hunger signal. If you're a Pitta, you do not skip lunch. The Kapha is earth and water, kind of relaxed, chill. Kaphas tend to be ones that are very contemplative, don't talk a lot. Vatas love to talk. Kaphas are usually in a party in the corner, hanging out, talking to one person. If that's you, that's me, then you're a Kapha. Kaphas love being in the kitchen, love homemaking, love doing things that are taking care of others. Vatas don't really like to be touched. Kaphas love to hug. So get a sense of who you are. Kaphas in terms of the frame, bigger mass. Vatas, smaller body frame, smaller mass. Okay. Hopefully this makes some more sense. What happens when we get pushed out of our birth state, when we get pushed out of alignment from that prakriti to vikriti state, is we start to experience stress. So let's say I'm born as a pitta, kind of driven, type A, organized. I take on a job where I'm traveling across the world, changing time zones all the time, eating meals at different times, and I don't have my circadian rhythm down. What happens to me as a pitta, born as a pitta, I'm going to start to create some vata tendencies and I'm going to start to become imbalanced because I'm moving and going more than my nature wants. Because pittas are kind of determined and very much have to have their lunch every day. But let's say I skip lunch every day because I'm traveling, because of my movement element has picked up because of my job. What happens is my body experiences stress. And my interpretation of stress is going to be different than another person's interpretation of stress because I was born as a pitta and I'm living this lifestyle where I'm traveling a lot and it affects me differently than it'll affect somebody else. So what happens is my body starts to view this skipping of meals and all these different time zones as stressful. And then the hypothalamus, which I like to call the divine internal mother, some call the divine internal father, it doesn't matter, call it a divine parent of yours. That's like the tip of my pinky inside your brain. Hypothalamus is communicating to the pituitary gland and always communicating to the pituitary gland, which is our endocrine organ, to regulate the other organs in the body. The hypothalamus tells us when we're hungry, tells us when to go to bed. Divine internal mother likes you to follow the rules. If I'm sending you a hunger signal, I want you to eat. The hypothalamus is always regulating. So in terms of the adrenals in this picture, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, the hypothalamus activates the pituitary gland to release cortisol first thing in the morning. And your body makes a very specific cortisol rhythm. I talk about that in chapter 6 of my book, the adrenal link. I have a whole chapter looking at adrenal testing results of my patients back in the day because I wasn't sure if the adrenals played a role in migraine. And humbly, I realized after studying my patients that pretty much every single patient I tested had weak adrenal systems. And what was happening was the body was getting overtaxed. The system was becoming overtaxed. And every time we go out of alignment with ourselves, we manifest some stress. We start to activate those adrenals. And if you're making this much cortisol during the day, which is supposed to go down at lunchtime and then go down again at bedtime and then so you fall asleep, maybe the cortisol rhythm is up here because I'm living off alignment with myself. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. This is what leads to the imbalanced nature and the imbalanced self. Cholesterol plays a role in this. I don't know if you guys know this, but cholesterol is a precursor to all the hormones in your body. This is page 43 of my Mysterious Mind book, if you have it. Cholesterol gets broken down to pregnenolone and then moves into either the anabolic, which is the anti-aging muscle tissue rebuilding pathway, starting with DHEA, or the catabolic, progesterone to cortisol, muscle tissue breakdown pathway. They're supposed to be 1-to-1. What happens when we're stressed? We take cortisol and move it over to we take cholesterol, move it over to cortisol, and we make too much cortisol. We start to run out of progesterone and maybe even cholesterol. And then the body makes more cholesterol. So if you had high cholesterol at any point in your life, or you have low cholesterol and it's kind of shifting around, very much due to the fact that most likely your hormones are going up and down. And you're living out of alignment with your birth nature. You see how this all comes together? So that's why I had to do the stress personality quiz. What is your imbalanced nature? Are you Vata excess, windy type? That means you might be in freeze state. Are you the Pitta excess, fiery type? That might be fight state. Or are you the Kapha excess, earthy, flight? Think about your nature, think about your state, and remember the quiz is there on the website. Take the quiz and understand your nature. I promise you, it'll answer so many questions for you. So back to that windy nature, windy freeze, too much vata. Maybe I'm moving, going, doing too much, skipping my meals. What happens? I get constipated, gas, and bloated. My mind starts to get restless. I get anxious. My body gets tight. My neck gets tight. I start to get tension headaches. That's a classic windy presentation. Fiery, maybe if anything, my pitta nature, I'm eating too many spicy foods. I'm really overdoing my heat. Maybe I'm hanging out in the sun too much. Maybe I'm taking some intense sports or intensely exercising. Well, then I might develop reflux, nausea, and start to get even diarrhea because my gut is heated and my mind can get irritated and frustrated. That's too much fire. And what does that turn into, my friends? Migraine. Anything behind the eyes, the fire organ is the eyes and the liver. So if you have behind the eye pain, most likely you've got too much fire in your body. And the question to ask is, where is it coming from? Earthy. Earthy energy is sluggish and heavy and fatigued. If I'm too earthy, remember that bell-shaped curve, it could be too low or too high. If I'm too earthy, I might get depressed. I might start to get congested. I might start to get sinus type headaches. That's how that presents. I might just start to gain weight, too much earth element. Okay. So what's fascinating is that we start to go into different mind states. And this is where the biggest challenge is. We get stuck in either an anxious mind state, an irritable or fatigued, depressed mind state. And that anxious, worried, what ifing brain, or that irritable, intense, perfectionistic brain, I have to, I must, or that low anhedonic, depressed brain, I can't, I'll never do that. We get stuck in our brain programs. And this takes us to the final piece of this, which is the three brain model that truly, once I started using this in my practice, everything shifted. How do we approach a complicated condition like migraine? Well, I encourage everybody to start thinking about yourself as having three brains and not just one. What the heck are those three brains, right? Well, the first brain is your thinking brain, your central nervous system, the brain in your head. It's the brain that is basically creating a reality of your life. It's the brain when it's exposed to something. It's the part of you that creates a story or an impression. We call it the model of the world in neurolinguistic programming. It's what is your model of the world? Are people inherently good or bad? Are, individuals from this background nice or not nice? Is this food generally good or bad? And this is just based on your program and based on even society and how you grew up and who was around you. What was the model of their world? What were your mom and dad saying to you? What were your grandparents saying? And what is a story that has been passed down, the beliefs, the attitudes, the impressions that maybe are not serving you? So, this model of the world truly, truly impacts pain. I found out firsthand if we can change the program there, do a little housekeeping around the model that isn't serving us, create a new model, a new way of thinking, the entire system shifts. But that's just one of your brains. The second one is your feeling brain, the enteric nervous system. That's the brain within the gut. That's the part of the brain that is feeling, that's intuitive, that's picking up on the energy around you and making an intuitive feeling decision about something. The amygdala in the brain senses, it's connected, actually, the limbic brain is connected to the enteric nervous system. So it's like a peripheral extension, the feeling brain of your actual brain up here. It's fascinating. The enteric nervous system is the only organ in the body that can operate completely by itself. If we cut the vagus nerve, which connects the gut and the brain, cut it and let the enteric nervous system kind of function on its own, it could completely function on its own. It's fascinating. It makes all the neurotransmitters in the body. Your enteric nervous system is fascinating in terms of what is happening down there in terms of how you process or maybe do not process your emotions. Many people I meet with pain have not had a chance to process their emotion. They haven't been taught how to process their emotions. They're holding anger, resentment. They're holding shame. They're holding guilt. They're holding these deep core, I'm not worthy feelings and emotions that are stuck deep in the circuitry. And that's where the housekeeping needs to happen for you to really release the pain. The third brain is the doing brain. This is the brain we talked about in the last module. That's the microbiome. This is the other piece that I have to say is often missed because our quick medical visits, we don't get to go through this. That's why I like to educate on these topics, in that the microbiome, 100 trillion bacteria, are truly in charge of you. Do you know there's more conversation from your gut to your brain than there's from your brain to the gut? Someone said recently there's 9 times more conversation from the gut to the brain than there's from the brain to the gut. A lot is happening down there, and the microbiome is dictating which neurotransmitters to make, how many inflammatory peptides to make. Your microbiome is where 70% of your immune system lies in your gut. So these three brains, what I found over the course of time is that all three of them weren't being taken care of in some way. My people I worked with didn't get better. And the more I worked on all three of them, the more I saw pain start to resolve itself. The goal is optimizing all three of these brains to improve your pain. So here's a visual to get you a sense. It's top down, bottom up. First brain affecting second brain, affecting third brain, and third brain affecting second brain, affecting first brain. So your thinking, your stressful thoughts can actually shift your microbiome. There's data on that. Your feeling or their lack of connection to your emotions can shift your first brain and your third brain. And if your microbiome is off, let's say you're growing some pathogens, maybe you have Clostridium difficile, maybe you have some bacteria down there that aren't serving you, you can create more cytokines, inflammatory peptides, which then can affect your feeling brain and your thinking brain. And it's complicated, I know, but if you can kind of start thinking about the three brains versus the one, you'll start to get a sense of what has been missing in my protocols. Because very often, clinicians address certain parts. These are actually parts that often don't get addressed at all, I'll be honest. Though what I'll say is when I do coaching work, I have individuals come in from other coaches with a bag full of supplements saying, I've been taking all these things to help my strength and to help my pain or release my pain from my head and to help my digestive health. And they're taking all these supplements that are giving them all these supposed benefits. Yet the challenge is they're not moving as fast or as much as they should be, considering the amount of energy and time they're spending and money on supplements. What they're missing, oftentimes when I see them, is they're not working the first and second brain. They're not working on how they think about life, how they approach life, how they feel about things. Are they feeling? Are they tapping into their emotions? And this is something that I love to do. And I have a very specific protocol of how to do that. And once you go there, your whole system shifts and you start to really balance out. So this is the biggest picture here of looking at this. We talked about this idea that Hippocrates said way back in the day, all disease begins in the gut. So impaired digestion, yes, it can happen at birth. Unfortunately, if your mom was stressed out, that could impair the fetal microbiome. If your mom was eating foods that weren't aligning with her, that could affect her microbiome, which how do you, the first year of life, develop your own gut microbiome? It's through the vaginal delivery, my friends. You inoculate, as you pass through the vaginal birth canal, you inoculate yourself with mom's bacteria. So if, for example, you're a C-section baby, or if mom's gut was imbalanced because of either stress or poor foods or something that wasn't working for her, you were born with an impaired digestion. And then let's say you had trauma or early stress. Let's say that you were eating foods that weren't aligning with you. I talk about gut health in my book, Mysterious Mind, because my daughter at age 5 was getting headaches, and here she is 21, headache free. And it's because we worked on her food intolerances that she developed. And yes, what happens when your microbiome is imbalanced, you could start to get intolerances to certain foods. And you keep eating the food, you don't even know you have an intolerance because they're hidden. It's not the same as an IgE allergy, it's an IgG intolerance. And then what ends up happening is you keep eating those foods, you keep getting inflamed, bad bacteria keep growing, you get what we call dysbiotic, shift in the microbiome. And then when the microbiome shifts, you don't make as many of what we call the short chain fatty acids, which actually protect your brain, protect your gut, help rebuild epithelial cells. You don't make enough neurotransmitters like serotonin. 95% of your serotonin is supposed to be made in your gut. For those that are taking triptan medications that work on serotonin receptors or serotonin reuptake inhibitors, a lot of serotonin is supposed to be coming from your gut, which then can influence brain serotonin levels. And if your microbiome is imbalanced, you're going to deplete your nutrient and, your neurotransmitter production of your gut. Nutrients also could be a problem because your gut absorbs and creates like vitamin K2 and makes B12. And if your gut bacteria are not working well, you're not going to create nutrients or absorb your food nutrients well. And then eventually you have this migraine evolution. Head pain goes from the neck, starts to show up behind the eyes. We often find that vata pushes pitta, excitable energy, pushes on fire energy. So if you feel that neck pain goes to behind the eyes, it's because you have both of those components. So I'm going to share with you a couple of testimonials because I've been working with clients for quite a few years now, and this was back when the program was called Master Your Migraine Program. A lot of people have messaged me asking how they could work with me. I encourage you to do the stress quiz and to fill out the application form on my website, just so I get to know you to make sure we're the right fit. I'm very selective about who I take because I have a few hats that I'm wearing right now, so I unfortunately cannot coach everybody. Though if it makes sense, I would love to consider coaching and working with others. And this is what some of the clients have said. This is from Mary Doyle, the first testimonial. I thoroughly enjoyed participating in the Master Your Migraine course with Tripti Gokani. Tripti was phenomenal. I go as Tripti because I'm a coach when I put on the coaching hat with everybody. Tripti was phenomenal, so supportive, knowledgeable, positive, and insightful. She was and still is entirely invested in my healing journey. I've incorporated many of the course's techniques and strategies into my daily routine, which have improved my sleep quality 100% and lessened my headaches to about one mild headache per month, down from 2 to 4 per month. I fully anticipate to becoming headache free as I continue to improve. The course helped me have a greater understanding of my body's system and how to keep it balanced. I had so much fun participating and learning. Thank you, Mary. And then my next participant here, David, it was really fabulous to have him come in because he said this: I've been suffering from chronic migraines for over 20 years. I signed up for Tripti Gokani's coaching program and greatly benefited from it. As I did the work over the 10 weeks, and mind you, my current program is much longer. This was a 10-week program. As I did the work over 10 weeks and followed her supplement protocols, that my system became more resilient. I had an improved threshold for pain. I found that I was less triggerable, and weather-induced migraines did not affect me as much. I would highly recommend her coaching program to anyone who is seeking to live a more complete life with less pain. Thank you, David. So I just want to share with you that I am going to be opening up some different opportunities to work with me. And the model will be evolved and more than even what I offered before. It's a little bit more strategic, where I did that in 10 weeks, pretty intense 3-hour calls once a week. We're going to move it to a few months, kind of deliver the information a little bit more slowly. And I believe we can get more powerful results than what we've seen because I've been using the more advanced program over the last couple of years. Master Your Migraine was the first iteration of my program about 6-7 years ago, and it's been evolved since that time because I'm learning and growing along the way. Here's a link to the stress quiz and my book, The Mysterious Mind book. Feel free to grab a copy of that book on Amazon. The link is on my website also. There is actually a testimonial section on my website. I have some videos like the one right there with Kristen. She was one of my first coaching clients. She gives the most beautiful testimonial. Actually, you should listen to it because she talks about some of the tools that she gathered from working with me. And I just really want to be here to support all of you, to know that I can be a resource to you in any way that we continue together, be it that you follow me along with the different books I'm writing. I have a second book coming out later this year. Maybe even join me at the yoga studio to do some yoga classes or yoga workshops, or come on as a coaching client. Just know that I'm here to support you, to share this ancient wisdom of Ayurveda with all of you. And I really look forward to, you know, kind of being there for you in every possible way. So we're going to have some Q&A coming. If you have any questions, please email at ask@triptigokani.md. What else do we have here? I think that's about it. So thank you so much for being here. And I really look forward to working with you in some fashion, staying here to support you in any way I can. This is Tripti Gokani signing off. Lots of love and pain-free days to all of you, my friends. Be well. Bye-bye.